When it comes to dash cams, you're probably in one of two camps. Camp A, that's weird, why would you want to record everything like that? Or Camp B, they're so cool, why don't car makers build them in standard? If you're in Camp A, quite skeptical still, let me show you why there are fewer people in that camp every day, before I then show you 4 interesting dash cams that I think have got some of the most important new features to help you decide to buy the best one, should I convince you to do so. First of all, a quick refresher what a dash cam is, in case you really don't know. I bet you actually do, because you've seen the output of dash cams. They capture amazing things that perhaps nobody else would have videoed had a dash cam not been running on a nearby car. They also capture tons of accident footage. You may say, okay, that's just like prurient interest. Except when you're in the accident and you'd like to be able to prove what really happened so it's not their word against yours, especially if it's a view to the rear of the car and you get rear-ended. There are also times when dash cams are handy when an interaction with some authority doesn't go the way it should, and you'd like to be able to show that and not just say that. And dash cams can be really useful when nobody's around, when your car's not running, when it's parked. Most of them have a mode where they will wake up from sleep and start to record if your car is bumped, or even if motion detection tells them someone's casing your car. That can be pretty handy stuff to have, as long as they don't steal the dash cam. Dash cams do all of this by recording to an internal SD card, and once they fill that up with these clips, they then start to overwrite the oldest one first. So you've always got a pretty large wealth of clips going back in time to pull from. And I guess the last basic feature before I show you some new gee-whiz stuff is that many of these cameras have a rear view cam. Some of them will look into the cabin, the so-called Uber view, right? And many of them also offer these add-on rear cameras that wire on a long cable back to your back window or backlight and look out at the world from the rear of your car. Again, handy if you get rear-ended, a notoriously irritating and sometimes tricky thing to prove who did what. So now let's take a look at 4 dash cams that I think have some of the most interesting, fresh features and important considerations when you're out to buy one, which I bet you're getting closer to doing now. Now let me show you the Garmin Mini 2, which has one of my absolute favorite features in all of dash camery. It's mini. I love small dash cams, all other things being equal, because up here at the top of your windshield is a pretty crowded neighborhood these days. Obviously you've got a sun visor, then you've got a mirror obviously, and then you've got a bunch of sensors up here these days. The good thing about this is it doesn't add much clutter. The downside of a tiny dash cam is what do you have to give up to get it this small? For example, on this one, which by the way is a quality brand name model, you still don't get 4K resolution. Today, a lot of folks want 4K because it allows them to zoom in when they look at a clip later and maybe read a license plate that you couldn't read in 1080 resolution. Secondly, there's obviously no screen on this one. If you want a screen on your dash cam, you want a bigger dash cam. So this one uses entirely a Wi-Fi connection to your phone. Let's talk about the tyranny of the power cable. Look at the dash cam. Now, look at its power cable. The power cable is actually bulkier than the camera. Now, obviously, it's not all going to sit here. It's going to be strung around the car. So take care to run this carefully. Up over your headliner trim, down your A-pillar garnish, snake it along a crevice in your dashboard, and then you'll plug it into a USB adapter like this to get the power. If any of this makes you blanch, go to a 12-volt, an auto stereo store, and just tell them you need help installing your dash cam. They might look at you saying, really? But just have them do it, because they can do a really clean job if this doesn't seem familiar to you. And it's worth it in the long run. Don't clutter up your car. Now before I show you the next camera, the Nexar Beam GPS, let me show you how I'm going to mount it up here, because you want to think about mounts if you have multiple cars that you're going to use your camera in. Many of them use a permanent adhesive patch, and that's great. They tend to stick like mad and never let go. But this one's interesting because it has one of those little sticky, gummy suction cups on the back that you often see with phone mounts, for example. And that makes it a whole lot easier to move between cars. It's not really using an adhesive per se. And this one's also interesting because, as you can see, I think right through there, the GPS sensor is part of the mount, and it becomes active with the camera once you attach this to the windshield and then plug the whole apparatus into the camera, which hangs here below. Let me show you. So I'll attach my mount like so, and then I'm going to rotate it like any typical suction cup for GPS or what have you. And then I attach my little mini built-in cable here, and then the whole apparatus gets put in like this and like that. Okay, I think we're in good shape now. Something along those lines. All this is a little bit of inside baseball, but I'm pointing it out so you think about the mount that each camera uses and give it a quick glance and say, is it highly transportable? Are features built into the mount? Or can I look at this sort of thing as a permanent one-time stick-on? Most give you a choice of either or. Another thing to think about here is because this is small, again, no screen on the back, this does have a Wi-Fi connection to your phone, and your phone's usually with you in the car, right? So whenever these two are in proximity, they are going to meet and connect, and that's going to create a de facto connection to the cloud. So this is going to operate like a cloud-connected camera, constantly backing up clips to your cloud account, which, by the way, is free from Nexar. Now, that kind of cloud connectivity necessarily means you cannot log into this camera remotely when you and your phone are somewhere else to see what's happening in your car, because the connection is from your phone, which isn't in the car. As cams move more toward using your phone as their interface and cloud connection, check a camera's specs before you buy it to make sure it's compatible with your phone. That's not always the case. For example, this camera didn't work with my phone. Oh, by the way, if you're looking for new trends in dash cams, I guess I have to say AI is it. This one uses AI, so it claims, to identify important clips and automatically put the save tag on them so they don't ever get overwritten without you having to push any button or say anything. Now, the Vantrue N4 is interesting because it's one of those cameras that doesn't rely on your phone as its interface. It has a ton of interface built in. Buttons all around the thing, a nice sized screen on the back, lots of I/O ports over here on one side. So this is a great camera for those who don't want to fiddle with another device to control this device. It's also big on multi-channel recording, doing 3 views at once, all recording at the same time. The forward camera you see here, there's a built-in, always connected cabin camera over on this end with 4 little infrared emitters to illuminate the cabin, for the camera anyway. And then you've also got packed with it this rear camera and a long cable that lets you stick this in your back window, as we've seen on some other cameras, and therefore have that rolling at the same time. It'll capture all 3 of those at 1080p or a little better, or if you just want to grab 2, it has combinations where one is 4K and the other one is 1080 HD. But this one really says I do a lot of channels at once. It's also powered by a supercapacitor, which is a different way of storing power than using a traditional battery. Main advantage there, it's really good and more durable in very hot, punishing climates. Now, that's for sleep operation, like when the car is parked. For typical driving and charging of that supercap, it of course still relies on one of those long power cords we talked about. And while just about every dash cam these days has a G-force sensor that'll make it wake up when the car's parked and start recording, like if someone bumps it or tries to break into it, this one also has a motion sensor at the same time, looking for motion visually as opposed to just waiting for bumps or impacts. Either of those can wake it up to start recording. So ideally, it might catch the person who's thinking about breaking into your car before the impact of them actually doing it. This is the Nextbase 622GW. This one to me is an example of a premium camera pretty much at the top of the market. It's the most expensive camera I'm showing you today. A little over $300 is the list price. You'll do better street price, but still, this is not some $100 camera. You can tell by the quality of it, the weight when it's off the mount. It's got a nice aluminum shell here. It just feels like quality. Look here at the nose, there's this knurled ring that lets you turn that filter on the front as a polarizer to take out some of the glare that you typically find when you aim a camera through windshield glass. Nice touch. It's got a nice screen on the back as well, 4K, image stabilization, which is another way to make sure that you get the resolution you need to see fine details. 4K is part of that, but having a stable image is also a key part of that, because if something's shaking and vibrating every frame, that can make it hard to read, even if it's 4K. Other interesting features include support for What 3 Words, a sort of lesser-known GPS location system. Now on this cam, smart algorithms are used to process out fog. That's a neat trick, because it's actually capturing more than you can see in a sense. That can be useful given the fact that fog often causes incidents on the road that you would want to have a recording of. And it also connects through your phone like so many do, but using that connection, once its G sensors detect a major accident, it can automatically reach out to first responders and relay any information about maybe your blood type or any allergies to drugs you may have or medical conditions that are part of its SOS report, if you choose to put that into the app and have it share that information. So there's a lot going on in here beyond just capturing the view of the road. Oh, by the way, it captures more than just this view. A whole slew of accessories allow you to attach other cameras to look out behind you, for example. Into the cabin, out to the road behind you from the front of the cabin, or out to the road behind you from the back of the cabin. It all depends on where you wish to put other cameras around the car and what you want them to record. But you've got a ton of flexibility for that second view that this will record simultaneously. So I hope you've got a little better understanding of dash cams and maybe now a little better comprehension of what makes a good one, depending on what you're interested in. By the way, if it all sounds like a lot of doom and gloom collection, also know that today's dash cams are so good, they actually capture great scenic footage of really great drives you've taken. That's a whole nother side benefit that you can use a lot of the time. Let's face it, most of us aren't in accidents very often, so I hope. I can tell you this, once you have a dash cam on your car, it's kind of like buying a pickup truck. You'll wonder how you ever lived without one.